Hi, I'm Erin Hunt. I'm the Program Officer at Mines Action Canada. I was an intern. I was trained by both Nancy and Krista before they formed Foot in the Door Consulting. And since then, we've actually hired them to do a leadership training for our international youth network of landmine and cluster munition campaigners all around the world. Mainly because I think most of my work in nonprofits has been I see an opportunity and gut instinct just says apply for that or sign up. The reason I work in landmines and cluster munitions is because gut instinct took me to a seminar when I was younger, and at the end of the presentation I realized, wow, like landmines is a problem we can actually fix. So there's so many global problems that are a little bit intimidating and you don't know if you're ever going to actually make an impact, whereas Mine Action, you know we're going to fix this problem. Right now, one of the biggest things we're working on is our campaign to fix the bill, as we call it, hashtag fix the bill. Canada has signed a convention on cluster munitions which bans the use of cluster munitions or cluster bombs because they have just an unacceptable harm that they cause to civilians. So in 2008 Canada signed this ban. As of this morning, 81 countries have acceded or ratified it, but Canada hasn't yet. So we have to have legislation before we do that, and they put out draft legislation last spring so that Canada could eventually ratify this treaty. The only problem is it has huge loopholes in it. It's a treaty, the treaty bans cluster munitions, yet our legislation says it's okay for Canadians to help other countries use cluster munitions. So oddly enough, we don't really like this legislation, and right now we're working to get Parliament to change it to totally ban a weapon that we think causes unacceptable harm to civilians. So there's lots of stuff on our website about how you can help us fix the bill. Probably the need to be like how no matter what your job description is, you're going to be doing something new, and no matter how good I think I'm getting at my job, the next day something comes up and I'm like, oh, I have no idea how to deal with this. So I think for me it was very surprising that it's always challenging. To take every chance to learn possible, because you never know what's coming up next. Actually, I think my favorite memory was before I was actually staff at MAC. I was an intern and then I was a volunteer. Well, actually I was a volunteer, an intern, and then a volunteer. And as a volunteer, I went as a youth to a meeting they had in Jordan in 2008. And it was at the end of this diplomatic meeting where the youth had been in one room and the diplomats and the campaigners were in another room, and the last night we had a campaigners and youth, everybody was together for the civil society, let's call it party at the end. And I actually was sitting with Paul, who's our executive director, and they had started the music and there was a bunch of people out on the floor dancing, and Paul sort of pointed out to me that that's what's so great about the campaign we work with, that there was this room full of people from every country you've ever heard of, and probably some you haven't, and everybody was on the dance floor dancing to Jordanian music in the way you dance in your own country. And I just thought that was an amazing sort of metaphor for how we work in the global campaign against landmines and cluster munitions, because we all have this one goal of, in that case, dancing, but we all bring our own methods and our own style to it, and it turns out to be really fun.